Alrighty, so for this part of the project, we're going to talk about college loans, paying for college, and where you're going to live, renting and buying a house. So first things first, we'll talk about student loans. So college is expensive, and you're going to have to pay for it. Usually we can't afford it, so some of it is going to have to be paid for out of student loans. Hopefully you're going to get some scholarships or some grants or stuff like that to help you as well and keep your student loans as small as possible. But most people end up having to take out some student loans. Now you can live on campus, and that will be more expensive, or you can live at home, and that'll be cheaper. If you go to a private school, it's going to be more expensive than a public school. If you go out of state, it's going to be more expensive. And then you can try to get as smallest interest rates on your student loans as possible. So most federal loans right now about 4.35%, and then private loans can range between 4.35% and 15%. So the smaller the interest rate, the less you're going to end up paying on the loan. And then lastly, you also want to think about whether it's a subsidized loan or an unsubsidized loan. Subsidized loans are going to wait to calculate interest until after you finish school and you start making payments, whereas unsubsidized loans, they're going to calculate interest on your account as soon as you start borrowing that money. So you want to try to avoid unsubsidized loans as much as you can and try to get as many subsidized loans as you can. So let's look at an example here with UTSA's cost of attendance. This is last year's number, so if you are thinking about going to UTSA and use this as an example, you'll need to pick this year's numbers. So for our example, we're going to assume that you're living on campus. You might live at home, and then hopefully you'll be able to see how much money you can save, because as you can see, it's quite a big difference between living on campus and at home. And then you've got tuition and fees. We're going to make sure to include housing and meals living on campus. You're going to have books and supplies, transportation, and a lot of fees. So for 1 year at UTSA, the cost is $28,972. So this was last year. And we're going to calculate how much it would cost to go there for 4 years. So in our example here, on the next page, we're going to put the cost for 1 year in this blank. And then we're going to multiply that by 4 to see how much it would cost for 4 years. If we multiply that by 4, we get $115,888. Now your goal would be to get this number to be much smaller by getting scholarships, those kinds of things to bring that money down. But if you don't, you're going to end up having to take all of this out in a student loan. So this will be your loan amount. So in this formula, which we're going to use a lot in the next couple days, our amount of our loan, the amount that we're going to have to borrow, because we don't have $115,000, is going to be $115,888. We're going to use an interest rate of 4.35%, because that's kind of the lower end of the interest rates for student loans right now. That's 0.0435 as a decimal. And then we will pay monthly, so we'll pay 12 times a year. And then we're going to do a college loan for 20 years. So that's pretty common for college loans to pay it off over 20 years. So T will be 20. And then we're going to look for, when we're done, right, when we start paying this back at the end of our schooling, we borrow this money, we pay for our school, and when we're done, we're going to have to pay it back. So we'll pay it in monthly payments, and we want to know how much those monthly payments are. So that's what big R is. So we're going to plug this information into this equation here. So our amount of the loan is $115,888. We don't know big R. That's going to be our monthly payment. That's what we're looking for. In the top, we have 1 minus 1 plus R. Little r, that's your interest rate, over n, which we said is 12, to the negative 12 times 20. All divided by little r divided by n, or 12. Now, when you want to do these calculations, you're going to want to type in the top first, and you can type it in just like this as long as you put these exponents in parentheses. So if you type in that whole top, you should get this decimal for the top, and then type in the bottom. So when I say the top, I mean this part right here. Type in all of that, and then type in the bottom separately. And the bottom, you should get 0.03625. We've got this times R here. And then on the other side, we have 115,888. Then you can go ahead and do that division in your calculator. You're going to get 160, good morning, 0.10728. And then the last step will be to divide both sides by 160, because we're trying to get r by itself. And when you do that division, you should get that r is equal to 723.8146. So our monthly payment will be $723.81. So that will be our monthly payment here. So after you finish school, you're going to have to start paying this money back that you borrowed, right? You borrowed this from the bank. Hopefully it's not this big. Hopefully you don't take out that much in student loans for your whole time. And you're going to be making monthly payments of $723.81. So that's a lot of money to have to pay, and you're going to have to do it for 20 years until you're all paid back. Now let's calculate how much we will end up paying for that whole 20 years. So if we take $723.81 and multiply that by 12, that will tell us how much we'll pay them in a year. And then multiply that by 20, and that will tell us how much we'll pay over the whole 20 years. So if you do that math, you're going to get $173,714.40. So really our education did not cost just $115,000. It actually cost us $173,000 by the time we paid all of this, because all that extra money is the interest. So if we really want to know how much interest we paid, we'll take how much we paid them and subtract how much we borrowed, and that will end up being $57,826.40. So this is the money that they made off of us by paying them all the interest. So this is how much interest we paid over that whole 20 years. So we paid an extra $57,000 for our education just for borrowing the money from the bank. So now we will start to talk about housing. So first we will talk about buying a house. And the nice thing about buying a house is you have a little more control over what you get, but you do, depending on where you want to live or how many bedrooms and bathrooms you want, it's going to be more expensive. But the nice thing is every time that you're making a payment on the house, you're gaining equity. So equity is how much money you make off of the house, because every time you make a payment, you are putting money into your own pocket. So renting, you might be able to have a little more options like amenities like pools and gyms and stuff like that. Depending on how much you can afford, you could get an apartment that has all of those things. And you just pay someone else each month, and they take your money, and then you move on. So what's important when you are buying a house is your mortgage rate. So your mortgage rate is the interest rate that you're going to pay on your loan, okay? So over the last 20 years, it's kind of been decreasing. This is the rate of mortgages over the past 20 years. And in 2021, it was at a record low. We even had mortgage rates as low as 2.65%. But in 2022, they went back up to 5%, and now they're closer to 6 or 7. So they're all the way back up here in 2024. So we've gone up very quickly, very fast in the last 2 years. So now let's do an example of what it looks like to buy a house. So if you buy a house, it's going to cost a lot of money. So let's say this house costs $232,000. We don't have that kind of money, so we're going to have to borrow that from a bank. Now, most people will put down a down payment and bring that a little bit lower, so you don't have quite as much money to buy from the bank. And usually you have to put a down payment down to get a decent interest rate, but we're not going to worry about down payments right now. So our amount of our loan is going to be $232,000. So that's how much money the house costs, but the bank is going to loan that to us so that we can buy the house. Our interest rate, we're going to do a lower one at 6.2%, so yours might be higher when you look up yours. And then the number of payments per year, what we'll pay every month, so that'll be 12. and then we're going to do a 30-year loan. So most loans are 30 years. You can do 15, especially if you want to try and not pay as much interest, but you do have higher payments. And then we'll solve for R, the amount of the monthly payment. So if we plug all of this into our formula, we'll have A is 232,000. R we don't know, that's what we're looking for. Times in the top we'll have 1 minus 1 plus 0.062 for our interest rate, divided by n, which is 12. And then in the power we'll have negative 12 times 30, because t is 30. And then that's all divided by our interest rate, divided by 12, n. So again, on this, you're going to want to type in this whole top first. And when you type that whole top into your calculator, as long as you put parentheses around this exponent right here, you should get 0.843580. And then in the bottom, when you type this into your calculator, you should get 0.005166. And then that's multiplied by R. And then on the other side of the equal sign, we have 232,000. So then go ahead and divide these two numbers, and we'll have R is times 163.273. And then over here, we still have 232,000. And then the last step to get R by itself is to divide by 163. And when we do that, we should get R is equal to 1420.93. So this is going to be your monthly payment for the house. So this is what you'll have to pay each month, which $1,420 is a lot of money, but you're paying for a whole house. And it would be easy to find an apartment these days that could cost that much, or if not, $1,200, $1,100, $1,000. So you're not paying that much more a month than what you would for an apartment, and some of this money is going to build equity. So you're going to own part of the home when some of that money goes into the home. All right, so what you're going to do in the project side of things is you're going to research a school you're interested in attending and how much it costs to go for 4 years. Okay, make sure you're using numbers on the school's website, not just Google in general. Make sure your cost of housing and meals is included. We're going to assume you're living on campus. Even if that's not your plan, you can see how much money you're saving. And then you're going to fill out the name of the school. You're going to tell me where you got those numbers for the cost. This will be the cost per year, and then you'll find the cost for 4 years. And then you're going to use the calculations that we just did the example and that formula and show your calculations to calculate how much it will be a month. And you're going to do a 20-year loan with this interest rate. And then you're going to find a house. You're going to find a house and you're going to find an apartment. So when you're looking for a house, you can look at websites like Zillow. They're good. You're going to find the cost of the house and write it here. Then you're going to use this website here, this Nerd Wallet website, to find your interest rate, which that link is in that QR code is in your notes as well. So you're going to put in your cost of your house, and then your zip code, and then you'll find your interest rate, and you'll put that here. And then whatever bank you used for your interest rate, you'll put this on this line. Then you're going to use this space here to calculate your monthly payments for a mortgage using the equation in our notes. We just did an example like that, and you're going to use that to find your cost per month. For an apartment, the nice thing is there's not going to be any calculations, so you just need to find an apartment that you like and can afford. Make sure that you can afford this with your non-degreed job. So this one is your degreed column. So this house you'll be able to hopefully afford with your degreed salary, and then your rent will be your non-degreed. So make sure you're paying attention to your salary and if you can afford these. You can look at apartments.com for apartments or any website that you want, and then they're gonna tell you how much to pay for rent. So you're gonna put the number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and this will be the name of the apartment complex.